Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Gio and Joey show. Oh, hold on. Wait a minute. Oh, yes. There we go. We're streaming to the right place. Joey, how you doing?
Better than I deserve.
Hey, man. Yo, I just been gone for 10 days in camp meeting. It was a wonderful blessing, but let the audience know what we're going to be discussing today.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a heavier topic, sort of, or it's something to be concerned about. But I think we can, maybe between the dialogue between the two of us, give the audience some ways of responding, right? If this is because I don't think I think the views described are an extreme at the moment, right? But I think they're a growing extreme, particularly with a certain segment of younger men, people who do feel, for some reasons that are quite legitimate, disillusioned with our political system, but they're jumping into an extreme and into ideas that are not good, certainly for society, and ultimately, I don't think good for them either. Um, but we'll dive into that.
Yeah, I mean, the dangers of religious liberty is what this show is about, right? Because many people take it for granted that the way America has been for the last 200 plus years, that it's going to remain that way. But biblically speaking, we know that it's not going to remain that way. And politically speaking, we see people now agitating for a Christian type nationalism that it should scare everybody, whether religious or not, because when religion tends to have the power, it never goes well for the majority.
Yeah. And I would say Christian nationalism or Catholic integralism, these are two forms of radical politics that are on the rise in certain circles. But at the same time, right, the other side is not lessening its radicalism at all, right? New
No.
York City just nominated for in the Democratic race an open socialist who has called to globalize the Intifada.
Hmm.
And at the end of the day, though, it's young, a lot of young adult like professionals that are elevating radicalism. And so a lot of people don't tie these things together, but like I think what's pushing a lot of young people into radical politics, whether it be on the right or the left, is this kind of feeling that society's coming apart, that they're not represented in their government or whatever. And that's legitimate. People are supposed to be represented in their government, and we should want, reform. We should want, to make sure that the public square is healthy and representing everybody. Um, but at the same time, we've got to sound the alarm about the actual radicalism, and hopefully, a majority of people still find it alarming.
Speaking of the New York City mayor, I still am hoping that that New Yorkers will wake up. That when it comes to the election in November, they don't vote this guy in. Because if they do, I mean, some of the things he wants to take over grocery stores. He wants to take over, I think, housing as well. And, it's just, and then you mentioned about the Intifada. At what point does it become treason, right? Because you got to uphold the Constitution. If you're calling for the overthrow of America or even the state constitutions, right? You have to be loyal to the country you're in, to
Yeah,
the Constitution, and yet he dangles free stuff to the masses, and the masses, hook, line, and sinker, want to get it.
yeah, no, I definitely think he has said many things that I think should disqualify him from any civically minded person voting for
Mm-hmm.
him. But I mean, not unfortunately, the First Amendment is good, obviously, but he has not crossed the line, at least in anything I've heard, from anything that
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't be protected. And so it's like what I think H.L. Mencken said it right. Democracy is the people getting what they want and getting it good and hard. And I think New York City is about to get it good and hard because he is not. It's not going to work. I mean, we've tried these things before. They've been tried many times before. It's not
The
going to work now.
the beauty of it is that, once it doesn't work in 4 years, he'll be out on the curb, if not sooner. there is impeachment. You know what I mean?
And I would say this too, when it comes to our blue cities, particularly New York, they tend to go through these cycles of they hit rock bottom because of liberal and left-wing policies, and then a Rudy Giuliani comes in, right, and then as a Republican, then a Mike Bloomberg comes in, right, and basically carries on Giuliani's policies, and so maybe they just need to hit rock bottom to finally vote for somebody sensible.
That being said, you have a video you want us to watch. Set up the video. No, I see you. You have a video you want us to watch. Set up the video before I put it on the screen.
Yeah. So people may have seen it already. It's a clip it's a video going viral on social media.
It's Jubilee. It's not the Coldplay.
No, but I will say this: the reaction to the Coldplay executive was actually a healthy civilizational sign. But yeah, so it's a Jubilee video. The premise of it, and for those who aren't familiar with Jubilee, right, they basically take people from different sides of the political aisle and they get them to have a conversation, right? This is their Surrounded podcast. So this one is one progressive. It's Mehdi Hassan, who used to be on MSNBC. He's a far left, he's a progressive guy. And it's one of him against, and then the video title is 20 far-right conservatives. I do want to say something about Jubilee's booking. I don't think that they're completely honest with all the people that they book about what the topic's going to be. Because, so people may remember the Jordan Peterson fiasco with him getting cornered about saying, I never said I was a Christian. But then the title says, well, apparently when they tried to book Jordan, they gave him some topics and they said it would be Jordan Peterson versus 20 atheists. But the 20 atheists were told that the topic was 20 atheists versus one Christian. And so there's that. And then in this one, I was watching this and all these kind of legitimately far right, white nationalists, right? Christian nationalists, they were upsetting me. The things they were saying about democracy and whatever, I was getting kind of upset. And then a guy came to sit down about halfway through in a hat with a mustache. And then I looked at him and I was like, wait a minute, that's my buddy Mateen. I met him in DC a year ago. And I'm like, he's not a right guy. And then I listened to his arguments. He's just arguing for legal immigration, for a process. And so they lumped him in with these 20 far-right activists. So I will say that. I don't want to besmirch everyone on the video. I don't know about other things. But the clip that we're going to react to is legitimately concerning. And I would say he's legitimately far-right. I just want to make sure I put that disclaimer. Don't trust the... Really.
All right, let's go. Let me know when we need to stop it, if we need to stop it.
Sounds good.
My next claim is that Donald Trump is defying the Constitution.
Nice to meet you. Pleasure to meet you, sir.
Mehdi, lovely to meet you.
So I would say that with Trump being anti-Constitution, I don't really care, to be quite frankly.
Okay.
Because in regards to the Constitution is a document that should seek to serve us. Yes. And when it fails to seek to serve us, that can be amended. Laws can be changed. And quite frankly, the fact is, we're defending things in this country that shouldn't be defended. The First Amendment should not defend pornography and making children and women be victimized. Making women and children be victimized as a result of that. I think things like blasphemy shouldn't be allowed per the First Amendment. I think that, quite frankly, there are a lot of legal processes that are enabling criminals and bad people to fully enact their will in this country in the name of the Constitution or following the Constitution. So, quite frankly, if Trump is anti-Constitution, good, and I think he should go further.
So this is wonderfully revealing of the modern conservative mindset. So I appreciate you spelling it out so openly. Just checking, do you support the Second Amendment?
I do.
Okay, surprise! I was shocked to hear that. I'm saying that Donald Trump is defying the First Amendment, the Fourth Amendment, the Fifth Amendment, the 14th Amendment. He's thinking of defying the 12th and 22nd Amendments. You're saying you don't care about the Constitution, but actually you do because you quite like the Second Amendment. You just don't like the bits that you disagree with. Can I just be clear on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm more than willing to amend it and include
whenever
the
it's in your
Amendment.
favor.
Yeah, absolutely.
So can Democrats do the same when they're in office?
No, absolutely not. Because
so you don't
it's
believe in democracy?
No, I don't. Absolutely not.
What do you believe in?
Autocracy.
By who?
Honestly, quite frankly, anyone who is in line with Catholic teaching.
Donald Trump is not Catholic.
Of course, he's not. I completely agree, and that's part of the problem.
Trump? You don't support Trump?
No, I don't. I didn't even vote for him. I wrote in like John Pork or someone. I can't even remember.
Why did you vote if you don't believe in democracy and you want autocracy?
Well, because quite frankly, I voted. I kind of voted just to.
I came with this argument, but I'm bored of my own argument. I'm much more interested in this. So
yeah, absolutely.
How do we get to an autocracy?
I think, quite frankly, that if we are able to enact local leaders,
who is the we, by the way?
I think, quite frankly, these far-right conservatives sitting right around
white
me.
people.
Yeah,
no
absolutely.
So,
well, actually, I have quite.
Some of the people in this room don't make the cut from what I can see visually.
Actually, hold on for a moment. I do think that there are people who happen to not be white who do actually have history in this country and have roots in this country. For instance, from the Mexican-American War, we subsumed a lot of territory of people who have far stakes in this country who happen to be Hispanic or what have you. I'm for defending the traditional demographics of this country, which is majority white and should stay that way.
How does the United States... I mean, we've gone so off topic, but how does the United States look like under you? Sorry, what's your name?
My name is, my name's Connor. It's a pleasure to meet you.
Took a little bit of a doubt there.
Oh, well, I use a pseudonym online,
fair enough,
but
Connor,
fair enough.
How would Connor's America look? What would it look like?
Well, quite frankly, I think we would deport people who shouldn't be here.
I didn't ask about deporting. What does the government look like?
What does the government look like?
Yeah.
I would say, quite frankly, it's under a sort of benevolent leader, such as
Where does he
Franco.
come from?
It could be a kind of aristocratic class. Could be someone
who picks the autocrat?
Frankly, the people. I mean, we could hold a vote on it. Kings were
isn't that democracy?
Well, sure. You can have a vote to get to that state.
And then no more votes afterwards?
Absolutely.
Wow.
100%.
Wow. And if that autocrat kills you and your family, you're fine with that?
Well, I'm not going to be a part of the group that he kills, because that's the whole thing.
How do you know?
Carl Schmitt
Autocrats tend to kill everyone, even their own supporters.
Schmitt makes this point very well in his work. It's the friend-enemy distinction, right?
Carl
liberals,
Schmitt, the Nazi theoretician.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't care.
Are you a fan of the Nazis?
I frankly don't care being called a Nazi at all.
I didn't say that. I didn't actually say that. I said, are you a fan of the Nazis?
Well, they persecuted the church a little bit. I'm not a fan of that. But
what about the persecution of the Jews?
Well, I mean, I certainly don't support anyone's human dignity being assaulted. I'm a Catholic.
But you don't condemn Nazi persecution of the Jews?
I think that there was a little bit of persecution and stuff like that, which is bad.
We may have to rename this show because you're a little bit more than a far-right Republican.
Hey, what can I say?
I think you can say, I'm a fascist.
Yeah, I am. Absolutely.
I'm just checking who's clapping just to get my set of where everyone is on this. Because you know that millions of people are going to be watching you on YouTube and checking out who the fascists and the Nazis are.
I'm not ashamed of that whatsoever.
No, clearly you're not.
During the pre-war period, prior to World War II, it was only those parties that properly enacted the people's will. That's why they won. The conservatives were fat cats. They were aristocrats. They didn't care.
Are you in favor of killing people who aren't like you?
Quite frankly, I'm not.
You mentioned Franco earlier. Franco killed a lot of innocent people.
Oh, well, he killed communists. He killed people who raped nuns and killed priests.
What about children who he killed and women who he killed?
What are you talking about? He never killed any women or children. He was Catholic,
He only killed combatants. Is that what you're claiming?
Yeah, he only killed combatants.
Never killed any innocent people.
The White Terror was only punishing those people who did acts of terrorism. And again, are you supporting like raping innocent women? Nuns, dude. Killing priests? I mean, priests don't brandish guns and kill people.
You just refuse to condemn the Nazi Holocaust, my friend. I don't think you're in a position to ask anyone any questions.
I quite frankly don't care what you think about me. If I'm a Nazi and being a Nazi
is mutual,
and being a Nazi means upholding human dignity, because I even believe in your dignity. I don't in a state that I was running. I wouldn't want to hurt you or anything like that. But quite frankly,
I don't debate fascists.
Okay. So do you concede then? I mean, why?
Do I concede you're a fascist who won't condemn the Nazis?
Yeah.
Yes, I concede that.
Okay, great. So I mean, what are we doing here? Because I mean, you just seem offended.
What you're doing here,
you just seem offended, to be quite frankly. Like
I'm offended by people who can't condemn the Nazis. Yes, I am.
Okay. Well, I condemn the evils that they did, but I don't really care about being. Yeah, sure. I don't care about being called a Nazi. Is the whole thing.
I never called you a Nazi.
I care
you
about
called
doing
yourself
the right
a Nazi,
thing.
a fascist, and a General Franco supporter.
Well, yeah, I am a General Franco supporter. He was awesome. He was so super cool, quite frankly. Because the whole thing.
And you don't believe in democracy.
I don't believe in democracy.
What are you doing here at a televised debate? This is democracy, not what a debate and disagreement.
Because it is the means to support an end. The reason we have free speech now is because we want to be openly talking about our opinions so we can get the state that we want. But it doesn't mean upholding free speech after we win. Again, I mentioned
the only good thing about this fascist moment we're in is that you guys are so open about it.
The whole reason I mentioned
the quiet part loud.
The whole reason I mentioned Carl Schmitt earlier, and you kind of blew past him, is the friend-enemy distinction. Even liberals, when they take power, they want to enact policies and they want to enact protections for their people and their ideas, and they're willing to punish their enemy. And so I'm the same way. I'm like, hey, if you're going to punish me, I'm going to get in power, and I'm going to frankly punish you when you try to leverage power against me. Just that simple.
I'm not sure what you want to say.
Hey, it is what it is.
All right. Pause. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to your seat.
It's a pleasure to meet you, sir.
I can't say the same, but thank you.
Yeah, that's good.
That was disturbing, dude. Go ahead.
But, did you want to go first on thoughts on that?
No, go ahead. No, you go first.
So I want to say, again, a couple disclaimers. For one, I don't know if you saw that one brunette chick right in the background. Like, she was part of the circle, but when you're starting like the Holocaust, like her eyes were like...
Yeah, I'm not going there.
So and again, that's why I want to say, just because they labeled this 25 doesn't mean that everyone in that group should be viewed necessarily as that guy. But like I said, I do think this is extreme, right? Like I said, I live in Trump country, right? Most of my friends and neighbors and many of my family vote for Trump. And if they were to see this clip, they would be just as disturbed, right? And so that's the other thing. Mehdi is legitimately a progressive and on the left. And so like some of the framing of like the fascist moment that we're in or whatever, that there is a little bit of dishonesty in trying to tie all of conservatives or the right, with that. So that needs to be taken for granted. But on the flip side, this guy did say the things that he said. And there was a growing minority that is feeling to some degree this way about like democracy and the Constitution. And so I do think that's something we need to talk about. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I mean, in listening to him, he made several arguments that are disturbing. But the common thread to all of those arguments are the ends justify the means. In other words, this guy has no integrity. He has no morals. He has no values. His only value is whatever it takes to get what I want. And obviously, he's trying to speak for a majority of people who think like him, right? They're willing to do whatever it takes to get in power and then rule the way he says they want to rule. So when people tell you who they are, believe them, right? And there is a growing movement that espouses those kind of beliefs, and they're willing to do whatever it takes. And it boils down to that. The ends justify the means. And if they think they can make a utopia by excluding people, by hurting people, by, as far as he even said, killing people if necessary because they're not part of, quote unquote, the right team, that should scare us. And any woman that would date that young man should be admitted in a psychiatric ward, because the only type of woman that should date that man, well, he shouldn't be breeding, period, but is another woman that believes just like him. And that is scary because scripturally speaking, we see in Revelation 13 and 14, and I did a series here on the Gio and Joey show, there's going to be forced coercion of people's conscience. Forget, the specifics of Revelation 13 and 14. The general principle is coerced getting along to the point where they're going to threaten people with economic sanctions individually. And so that is scary. And that is a wake-up call for me and others, that people can be this blatant publicly. He knows millions of people are going to watch this, and he could care less. And that's what's scary.
Yeah. I would push back on one thing slightly.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I heard what I heard, and it was legitimately terrifying and bad. One thing I would say is, I don't know this guy individually. I don't know how old he is, right? This is on the younger side, on the younger part of 20, and the younger side of his 20s. And so the one thing I would say is, listen, this guy may be fully gone. Maybe he's not. Like, well, I don't believe anybody's ever beyond like the possibility of redemption.
Yeah.
In other words, but I want to speak of like people like him and like young guys like him that are leaning in this way, even if they're not fully as explicit as what he's saying, or maybe they are, whatever. I want to speak about them as a group, right? I don't view them as any different than what we were talking about before with these people that for years, I mean, going back decades, right? The Soviet Union was in the height of its atrocities, and there were young leftists like waving this bar and sickle, right? To this day, in college dorm rooms, Che Guevara graces the shirts of thousands of American college students, right? And in other words, like radical ideologies have always kind of proliferated, right? People, particularly younger people, have, and for most of American history, like recent history, the 20th century, the 21st, those radical ideologies have been mostly left-wing radical ideologies. And today I think we're seeing a couple of right-wing ideologies that are starting to play that same role with the same demographic, right? Younger men, younger people.
But the thing, I think the difference is, though, Joey, and you may admit this, is that in the past, these ideologies would spread through, I don't want to say secret meeting, but closed meetings to people who believe like them, through letters, through
left ideologies.
No, communists like this guy's ideology. But now it's out in the open. They don't care anymore, right?
Well,
and
so that's true. That radical right stuff used to be like shunned out because, and I'll bring up one of my heroes, William F. Beckley Jr., who was kind of the father of the modern conservative movement in the 20th century. He basically, there was the John Birch Society. They were bordering into anti-Semitism and like some of this type stuff and like conspiracy type stuff. He basically told the leader of the John Birch Society is like, sorry, you can't write for the National Review. You can't be a part of our conferences, right? You're not a part of the mainstream conservative movement. We don't have that kind of policing of the, and it wasn't like legal policing, but like just the people cared about the integrity of the conservative movement because the conservative principles are so important. We don't have that, and so it's kind of like a Wild West. But as far as like radical ideologies proliferating in secret, like it's actually nothing new about like young radicals expressing radical positions publicly. It's new that it's right wingers doing it, right? Like before, like if you were like, the radical right, like you hate the Jews or whatever, you're hiding in the secret. Whereas if you're the radical left, you're getting the ideas from your tenured professor and you're saying them, you're shouting them in the street, and you're like, they've always been public.
Yes. Yeah, but I think what makes the powder keg, right, is the fact that now you have both the left and the right extreme verbalizing it, right? So that leads to clashes because nobody likes to back down, right? In the end, in the past, when it was just left extremists, if you had some protests, it was decent, concerned people with moral values who just wanted a balanced America. Now you get both extreme left and extreme right protesting, and you get into, violence and stuff. And so then that leaves the middle of us either throwing our hands up and just isolating ourselves in a sense of giving up because we just want to be left alone to live a normal, decent life. Or, right, some get radicalized and they feel that either radicalized or they feel disenfranchised, that no one's listening to them. And that when you feel disenfranchised, then you start looking for a family. And that's how people end up either becoming radicalized left or radicalized right. And that's why for Christians, that's why our anchor is Christ. He never goes left or right. He stays centered. And so, that's where it becomes, like it becomes that we have to constantly check ourselves to make sure we're not going in one extreme or the other.
There's this guy who I follow on Facebook. I think his name is Micah Fries. And he said something about the church has gotten really good at what was his thing? Something that he said. He says that the church has gotten really good at spotting the idols, the cultural idols that come from the left, but it's for the church to spot the ones that come from the right.
And you know why? Hold on. Before you continue that, you know why I think that is? Is because the left has been so in our face that anything that sounds or looks like, oh yeah, okay, finally we can get some normalcy around, they kind of dismiss the little fringe radical in there, not knowing that it's growing more and more, and it's going to swallow itself up as well. So I think it's that, like for example, this election was a referendum not on liking Trump so much, even though a lot of people do, but they were tired of the previous 4 years and all the nuttiness in the White House, right? At some point, right, when you begin to like shake something, the movement left and right is not as much until it starts gaining momentum, right? And so now you go from one extreme to the other. If the left wins the next presidential election, are we going to go left of Biden? That would be radical.
Well, if the New York mayor's race is any indication, the popularity of AOC's nationwide tour is any indication, like the left is learning all the wrong lessons. And as a lifelong conservative, right, one thing that I always trust the left and the Democratic Party to do is to learn all the wrong lessons and totally end the political moment. One thing people always, because like I'm critical of Trump, I don't consider myself never Trump because that seems to become a group of people that have defined in the opposite of Trump, but have defined their entire worldview and politics and life around
TDS.
Trump and
MAGA,
right? Like TDS is real, right?
On both sides.
It's got two flavors. It's got this like people who are like cult, and this is not all Trump supporters. I want to make sure that's there too.
Yeah.
Hardcore Trump supporters that Trump can do no wrong, but also the if Trump says it, it must be wrong crowd. And those are Trump does a lot of good things. He does some things that are questionable or sometimes worse. But like,
before I forget, what do you think of him trying to appease the crowd by releasing or planning to release the grand jury of Epstein after he said he was gonna try to let it drop?
I mean, he's doing it because his base was mad, and a lot of people outside. I would say the Epstein story is the biggest self-made scandal in the sense that, listen, I think it's well established Jeffrey Epstein was a sex trafficker. And I think it's also pretty well established that a lot of famous people, I don't want to go so far as like saying with certainty that people did these certain things, but like at the very least knew this guy and were in positions with him where they would at the very least probably have an idea of what's going on his island. That I'll say. But the reason why I don't have any sympathy for like Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, like getting all this hate from MAGA, is because these people for years campaigned on like the fact that this was all being covered up. And now they're trying to tell those same people, oh, actually that none of that's true. And I'm like, it is actually very possible that none of the things they were saying about the grand conspiracy were true. But like you made your bed and now you got to lie on it, and I'm just gonna laugh because you brought it on yourself.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, but that's right. Isn't that politics? Unfortunately, they lie to get in office and then try to switch things up, which to his credit, Donald Trump has. I mean, he's lied in things, but he does try to do what he said he wants to. He's one of the fewer politicians that tries to do what he said he was going to do.
In some things, yeah.
Yeah. No, but in the populist type things.
He wasn't hiding the ball, right? When people are complaining, like people, I saw even some Trump supporters were complaining about like the scale of the deportations. And I'm like, I have some questions with like due process being taken away. I'm like, but like, what I say to those people is like, how are you surprised? Like, in other words, this wasn't something that Donald Trump hit the ball on, right? That there was going to be nasty. So, like, when people are saying like they're surprised, I'm like, I mean,
but he's still way behind. Like, here's right. People talk about due process, and I believe people should get due process, however that's defined in our laws, right, for illegal immigration. So I'm not denying that. But how did then Obama deport 3 million people all within due process?
Wait, when he had 8 consecutive years.
Yeah, okay. But Trump's not even near 1 million yet.
Well, and the thing about it, I mean, Trump's only been in office for
6 months, not even
6 months.
Yeah, 6 months.
And like I said, I am pro deportation, right? Like, I mean, we have a deportation process for a reason. Every president does it, and we need to make, like I said, I will say this: the due process thing, I think, is important. But then, secondly, we can deport people without partnering with a two-bit, numbskull dictator in South America who runs a torture prison and brags about it, right? In other words, I think we can enforce our laws without the help of some dude who runs a country, right, smaller than most of our states, right? Like, we don't need this crypto scammer.
Or alligator Alcatraz either.
And that, since you brought that up, I will say this. First of all, I like Ron DeSantis a lot. He was my first choice in the Republican primary. But by the way, I'm not saying that he designed this, right? It was like somebody in his team. I keep getting texts like bragging about alligator Alcatraz. Now, I would have to look into this, but I don't have any evidence that anything bad is going on there to detention. But there is something about like the fact that the government does not bear the sword in vain, right? And that it is to enforce the law. It is to terrorize evildoers, right? Like, that is true. But also, it's a sacred responsibility, right? Like, you're dealing with people's lives. And so you should be serious about it, right? Like, you should be, it's not like a fundraising pitch.
It's a solemn event.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be.
Like, the death penalty, who deserves it, can be justified. I mean, I have some issues with the way it's carried out in America today, but it can be justified. But if somebody who deserved to be executed, they were sentenced to be executed, and then like the governor got up and like, we're gonna have a party for this person's execution. Like,
we're gonna put it on pay-per-view. Grab your no, I'd be wrong. On a side note here.
Okay.
Well, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Okay. Go ahead. So you're a pastor, right? You deal with people. And I do think, so I go to an Adventist university, and I've talked I'm a little older than my classmates, right? I went to college a little later. But I've talked to some of these guys, some of them born after 9/11, right? So they're quite a bit younger than me. They don't remember, the politics of the Republican Party before Trump.
Yeah.
And while none of them have gone so far as to like quote a Nazi person or to be like, I just want to like kill my political opponents or cut off speech for everybody. There is this, especially around some of the younger guys, is this thing that like the system's broken and which there's no reason to like support it, right? And it's kind of a very nihilistic worldview, right? And like we like Trump because he's a powerful man, and like kind of, I would say they're on the pipeline towards where this guy that we just watched is at, like, if he's at the final state, or actually, I don't think I think there's a state beyond him, but like they're on that pipeline. So you as a pastor, you've got a community that you're trying to reach, right? You've got church members. If there was like a young, like 17, 18, 19-year-old guy, and he's starting to have this kind of nihilistic worldview, what would be your answer as how you would respond, how your church would respond to, like, not like kick him out, but like to help him or to help the young men in your community?
Well, well, I know you preface it by not kicking him out, but that has to be on the table. I'm not saying it's a first resort, because it never is. It never should be the first resort, but it shouldn't be taken off the table. Paul threw somebody out in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, right? Where he was having an affair with his stepmom, and Paul threw him out. So that's last resort, but it shouldn't be taken off the table. That being said, though, the way you reach somebody like this is one-on-one mentoring. You need to have godly men mentor him and have him think from cause to effect. Think what is leading him to think, try to get to the root of what is leading him to try to get there. And it has to be saturated in prayer, but it can't be, it has to be intensive. If it's like, for example, the young man we saw in the video, it has to be intensive. It has to be constant on top of him, trying, in a friendly manner, but trying to get him to think from cause to effect, how that ultimately is detrimental to him. Because even though he said, the young man in the video, that he wouldn't be on the side being killed, you don't know that. If you have a leader who's willing to kill his enemies because they're just of a different opinion, that can turn on you at a drop of a dime. And so we would have to show him through prayer, through scripture, through mentoring, godly example, that there is a different way to live. Ryan from X, right? Artcam TV. Yeah. He had a couple of posts, and I was busy, so I didn't read them too thoroughly, of how, though, he was combating Andrew Tate's view of a man's role with women, and how, Andrew is about, one man should impregnate multiple women and you should kind of be the head honcho, where Ryan was talking about the beauty of one man, one woman in marriage, the man being the head of the household and all that. Those are two radical views. And as you and I know, many have drifted towards the Andrew Tate's view of man and a woman and marriage and all that. And the only way that changes is not from the pulpit, is from one-on-one mentoring.
So I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. I think mentorship is important. And I would, and maybe I misunderstood. So like, I would also, you can clarify. But when you talk about like the intensive, like always on them or whatever, like, I guess maybe you just mean like focus on a relationship.
Yeah. Be intentional. Like, you can't let it drift. Yeah, be intentional. Like, you can't let it drift, like checking in like every once a month, right? No, try to develop a genuine friendship. Like me and my friends, some of my other friends, we talk. Like my childhood friends, we talk every day via text or something, or email, sometimes even phone call. And that's how we've remained close for since I was in 7th grade, and I'm 52 years old, for crying out loud, right? It has to be intentional. And it doesn't have to be me, myself, right? But he needs to find a godly man, or if it's a woman getting radicalized, a godly woman who they can be, I don't want to say steered, but can hear the other side and knowing that it's coming from love.
I'm glad you said that bit about your friends and you still, staying in contact every day, because I actually think that there's a cultural divide, or not. It's not cultural. It's an age divide. Whereas like that seems like a kind of thing that's more common, with older generations, right? Like the pre generation that started their friendships like when there was no technology, right? In a different America. It's like, I don't know that there's many of these guys, right? These 20 something year old guys who are like have regular friendships that they've maintained since childhood. And I feel like we've actually atomized a lot more than that as a society, which is why, something like, it's an overwhelming majority of the younger generations are like statistically say that they're feel lonely like most of the time. And like I feel like
I forgot the name of the book while you gather that thought. I forgot the name of the book, but there was something, and I forget, these things switch, but I'm a what? Millennial, right? 73 to 78 is a millennial? Or no? Or Xer or boomer? I don't know.
I'm on the youngest side of millennial.
Oh, so I'm Generation X then.
Yeah. X.
It's I don't know. Well, regardless, the point being there was a book.
We'll make it even.
What?
I said I'll just call you a boomer.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Let me look it up on ChatGPT real quick.
I'm pretty sure you're
here's the point though. I'm looking it up. Well, the reason I bring it up is that there was a book that I'm Generation X. So there was a book that said that my generation was the last generation to leave church, and that not the majority, but a great number come back as they age. Whereas the generations after me, if they leave church, they come back in way fewer numbers. And I wonder if it has to do with that, right? Because all my friends that I am still in contact are in the spectrum of Adventism. Like one's an atheist, he no longer believes in Adventism, but he grew up Adventist, and so he knows the lingo, right? And then I'm the most conservative of the bunch, but yet they still attend church, except for the atheist one, right? But he would go every once in a while with his parents and for special events and stuff. Whereas, like you're saying, we stay in touch regardless of the differences of opinion. I wonder now one time it got so heated in our friendship group that me and another guy, I would say the next conservative guy behind me, we literally offered him to buy him a one-way ticket to any country he wanted. And we have the money to do it. But they all hate America, right? Yet nobody wants to leave.
It was the thing, I forget who said it, but America is the one country where even its biggest haters refuse to leave.
Yeah, it's true. So I don't know if that generational gap is what you're talking about, right? Where they feel lonely, maybe because it's all. I remember writing, and I wish I had it, back when AOL chat rooms, this probably before your time, were a popular thing. And I remember writing a poem about how people are different online than they are in person. That was the gist of the poem. And now we see this pandemic of loneliness because they know how to make friends online. They don't know how to make friends in real life. It seems like, I don't have any, but from what you're describing in others, it's easier to chat online than to actually chat in person.
Yeah. And that's why I think the church really has to be the answer to this radicalization, because I think a lot of it is again, this is JD Vance kind of before he did his 180, but in 2016, I still maintain his book Hillbilly Elegy is kind of one of the best books at pointing to like how we got to our populist moment. And it's really true. And the book outlines the problems that are plaguing so much of like middle America of, communities that have been hollowed out, right? Massive cultural change, right? Economic opportunity, right? And all these things have kind of generations feel like, right, that they don't have the same access to success or to buying a home as their parents did or generations did. And then they also, it's compounded by the fact that, you know, the nation is in massive debt, right? The retirement program, right, that these kids are, if they're, you know, went in the workforce, that they're working to pay for the older generations. They're working the whole time knowing that program isn't going to be around for them. And it's just, all of these things have kind of coalesced to, and then with the rise of technology, the atomization, people don't have friends, right? You don't have bowling leagues anymore. Most people don't go to
Yeah,
church.
no.
Go to radicalization. And so the church has to be in front of it and going out and reaching these people, meeting them where they are, like helping people, like have Dave Ramsey courses for the young people in your community, right? Like buy some pizza and like have people come over and watch Dave Ramsey, right? Right? Do stuff like that that's actually intentionally meeting people's needs.
You
Because
know, it's funny. It's
Christ mingled with men as one, they're good, and then he bade them follow me.
Yeah.
And so like,
You know,
do
now
that.
that you mentioned Dave Ramsey, I'm a Dave Ramsey certified coach. And for a while, there was this backlash against Dave. Because look, sometimes people forget that he's also an entertainer. So there's a little shock value that sometimes he does on the radio. I've met him personally. He's never been like that in person. Right? I got pictures with him and stuff like that. But during those years of backlash, I got busy, so I wasn't really like doing Dave Ramsey classes. But what I noticed, and this is what bugs me, because I grew up hearing stuff like this. You backlash him, but you raise no alternatives. You have no solutions. You don't like what he does, but you don't raise up a program to quote unquote do it the way you think it should be done. So, right? And what's the saying, right? If you say you can't, move out of the way so those who can do it, right? And look, there are certain
Roosevelt.
Yeah. There are certain things like from his teachings that I don't like, but it's only the negotiation part. Right? But the principles on debt and savings and house and planning for education and being disciplined, I have a whole pamphlet that I made mirroring his teachings, but just based on the spirit of prophecy that I'm going to email out to the Oklahoma City Conference because I'm the new stewardship director. Now the camp meeting's over, I'm going to start picking that up more and more. Right? So we need to provide solutions, and the solutions can't be sending a kid a text or sending a kid an email. It has to be, for lack of another better word, well, I'm not going to say it because then people might get the wrong, but it has to be hands-on. It has to be face-to-face. It has to be, like the young people say, keeping it real and not just putting a facade. I'll give you a perfect example at camp meeting. I was telling you, I was at camp meeting this week, made a lot of connections with young people. As a matter of fact, I'll give you, we held a 5K, timed 5K, and it was divided in 10 groups, and 10 groups, age groups, right? So an 82-year-old is not competing against a 5-year-old because that was the oldest and the youngest we had. And then it was divided by gender. There was a 5-year-old girl, 6-year-old or 5, who there were 24 women in the race. She beat all but 2. And she finished at like 33 minutes. And this is not a flat 5K. This is a very hilly 5K. And then we had an 82-year-old win his age bracket. Right? It was 80 and above. He won his age bracket at 82. We had 60-year-olds and stuff like that because cross-generational movements, I think, bond better. Because no offense to 20-year-olds, right? If all you hang out with is 20 years old, you're not going to get the full flavor of experience to make proper decisions on your own. And that's why myself hang out with younger people, because I learn things from younger people. I'm not 52 thinking I know it all. I learn from all sides, above me and below me. And I think too many young people think old fogies don't know anything, and they're missing out on life a lot. That's my little rant.
I think that's definitely true. I would say and again, I think there's blame to go around. I think we live in a society that has for 60 years been drifting away from, some bedrock principles, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there was one of these things where, like, in other words, people like to criticize like young people not getting married and whatever, but like a lot of young people grew up, they saw their parents fighting all the time and then get divorced, right? And they saw like these things, and like, by the way, I don't think that's a reason to despair and give up on marriage, right?
No, of course not.
But understandable, like, it has to be taken into consideration when addressing why people like are having more of an aversion to marriage, right? And then something has to be done. People just show, no, there's a better way. There's a good way to pursue this. And I think that's going to include this cross-generational stuff you're talking about actually being in a, you can see a couple who's been married for 60 years and they still like each other, right? Like those, if people in a church or in a community where they see that, they're more likely to have a positive view of marriage, right? And so I think that's another, it's one of those things, whether it's this radicalization that we're seeing on the right and the left, whether it's, people going to the Andrew Tate route, right, to avoid the shackles of marriage or whatever, like we have to address what made them fearful of the thing, right? So with the radical right, what made them skeptical of democracy, right? Why are they? We have to address that if we're going to keep more people from being radicalized or more people from having an aversion to marriage and whatnot.
As you mentioned that, and we need to wrap up here, I want to visit with my father-in-law who came to visit. But as you mentioned that, I thought of a verse that says, men's heart failing them for fear. And why are their hearts failing them for fear, whether it be towards marriage or towards, economic, their own economic growth or their ability to retire, is because they don't know Jesus. And I hate to bring it back to that, but God tells us, although I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. Right? When you know how the story ends, there's nothing to fear for the future unless you forget how God has led us in the past. And so men need something to ground themselves in. And the only thing that can ground themselves in that will be a true man's man is Jesus Christ.
Amen. I'll just, so we don't have to go through the article. I just wanted to because it's another thing for people to be concerned about. Our friend, fellow Adventist.
How's about? Can you do another show on Thursday?
Yeah, I can't. Thursday? Yeah, I can Thursday.
All right, we'll do Thursday and we'll do that article. It'll give me time to read it. And we'll do it against 8 o'clock Thursday.
And then I want to give everybody a heads up too. Next Monday, our recurring prophecy analyst, or we'll call him the Gio and Joey prophecy contributor, James Merrills, is coming back to discuss Israel, dispensationalism, and how Christians should view Israel in the light of Bible prophecy.
All right, good. On that note, we'll wrap up. It's good to be back after an absence there for camp meeting. Until next time on the Gio and Joey Show, be blessed.